to Nirma Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Datia. We have with us Mr. M. Manickam, CMD at Sakhti Sugars, joining in. Welcome to the show, Mr. Manickam, and a pleasure to speak to you as always. Mr. Manickam, my first question coming to you is, clearly, this is a sector which has actually come out of the woods after seeing real pain in the last couple of years. And no one really expected this kind of a turnaround for a sector like sugar, because every time I think we've spoken, it's always about the kind of stress the sector has been going through. And now the tables have turned. How would you actually describe this entire transition?
Actually, if you look at it here, we've been through this roller coaster at least about 6 times in my lifetime. This industry runs through a cycle of 10 years. We have about 3 years of good times, about 2 to 3 years of normal times, and about 4 to 5 years of bad times. Okay, so I think we've been talking the last few years, on the bad time. And, also we had a very bad drought in the south, and that affected us a little more. But now it's come back again in another cycle. So, it'll be there for another 2 to 3 years. It should be good. But this time, what is interesting is the ethanol story coming in. And, Mr. Gadkari has been saying that now we will have ethanol-driven cars. And I think they're going to make it mandatory from 2025 to have all cars run on ethanol and all that. So that comes in, basically, then you're looking at an energy source with a huge consumption. And that is going to make this industry fairly comfortable.
Right. So is it right to say that the sugar sector is on a sustainable growth path from here on, taking into consideration the various avenues of growth that are available?
I think so, because I think energy has been a new line which has come in. So it should maintain. But, the world prices of sugar keep fluctuating. So it depends upon how it goes. Right now this year, because the energy prices, Brazil is not in the market. Brazil is priced out. And if the oil prices do go down, then you will have the impact coming in, because sugar prices are directly linked to energy prices. And now with ethanol, we'll be a lot more linked. So if there is a cycle in the energy prices, that will probably affect us. If you go back to something like $10 a barrel of oil, then of course we'll have a problem. But you never know how the oil is going to go.
Right. As you interestingly mentioned about sugar prices globally as well. Yes, Brazil and Thailand, somewhere there is a concern with regards to output. So India does stand a good chance. However, what's the trend looking like in terms of the global prices? And do you think India is also mirroring the same trend in terms of pricing?
Yeah, I think we are right now, the export prices are fairly at world market levels. And it seems to be quite mirroring. But if you look at the domestic prices, each other country controls it on its own. For instance, in the US, it's like 20 cents a pound, which is in the world market is around 14 cents. But the US normally keeps a higher price for the domestic sugar. But we are not anywhere near that price. But I think still, I think we could go up to 40 rupees if it was to match US prices.
Right. So is there a possibility of we going up to 40 rupees even in the domestic market?
Probably not. Probably not, because we have production this year also. We have produced 35 million. So we don't expect it to go up to 40. But if there is a shortfall in production and India starts importing from the world, then it might go up to that. But right now, we don't see the possibility of that happening.
Right. And overall, if you see in terms of where the exports are concerned, there is a possibility we are expected to touch a record high of 8.5 metric ton in the current sugar year. How big a possibility, according to you, is that, and how well equipped is Sakhti Sugar for the same as well?
Right now in South, none of us are exporting, because most of the exports are going out of Maharashtra and UP. Basically, they have surplus production, and South, actually, we have deficit production over our consumption. So contrary to what we used to produce, we are producing only about 1 million tons versus 2.5 million tons. And the consumption in the South, just Tamil Nadu and Kerala alone, is almost about 5 million tons. So we're looking at fairly good quantity of sugar which is required here. So we are importing from Maharashtra right now. So most of the exports are going out of Maharashtra, and it's going out of a bit from Karnataka and from UP.
Okay. And overall, if you see in terms of where, the revenue recognition from pure sugar to ethanol is concerned, how is that divide then looking like?
I mean, some of the factories are going to ethanol. I mean, again, UP and Maharashtra, who have excess production, they have low sugar prices, so they are pushing into ethanol. So, and ethanol prices are fairly okay right now. So in South, we haven't gone that way yet because our potable alcohol prices are a little higher than ethanol. So we're still on the potable ethanol market. And we haven't gone into ethanol as much because there's not much of a production of ethanol in South yet.
Okay. And do you see a roadmap for the same?
Yeah, I think, ethanol is going to be a major thing because we are going to go green and you want to avoid pollution and, something, let's say a city like Delhi, if they banned all hydrocarbon and went ethanol, Delhi will be breathable tomorrow. Okay, I mean, that's something the government will have to go, and then if they do it, the only pollution which will come out is water vapor and carbon dioxide, both of which are not really bad. So the metros, in all the metros should go to ethanol. If that happens, in pollution and in particulates, emission, everything will come down. So I think it's going to be a good thing going in future. So if they're going to maintain that, I think we are looking at a fairly good future for the industry.
Right. And overall, as you mentioned, in terms of Southern India as well, yes, there is a deficit. What's the outlook on that front? Are we expecting things to improve on that side?
Not quite, because we are having problem in labor availability for harvesting. Because if you look at the southern states, the population growth is already negative. So most of the kids are going to school or college, and then they're getting into software and industries like that. So we don't find them coming into cane harvesting. So we don't have the manpower available for cane harvesting right now. And the alternate crops are also yielding more. So we are seeing a loss of farmland to alternate crops, maybe vegetables and flowers and stuff like that. So we are looking at value-added crops coming in. We are looking at the population maturing. And, totally, it's a different kind of problem that we are facing from the other states, apart from what we face in the north. So that is a different issue.
Right. And how would you as an industry propose to resolve for that issue? Because this is something which we cannot really let go of as well.
Yeah, we are mechanizing. In fact, Sakhti was the first company in India to do mechanical harvesting. In fact, one of our factories today, we are harvesting 80% of the cane with harvesters. Wow. And the other factory also we are pushing. So we will probably run it with harvesters, and harvesters take roughly about 5 liters of diesel. And that is now even at 100 rupees is about 600 rupees a ton. And whereas a manual harvesting is almost at 1,000 rupees. And if the diesel prices were to come down, it can go down to even 300 to 400 rupees, whereas the manual wages are not going to come down. So we're looking at fairly an interesting situation with mechanical harvesting and mechanical, cultivation of the sugarcane. That is helping us to keep our acreage high.
Right. So overall, I think this seems to be like a good mix where not that the employment is being affected. However, clearly the margins of the industry is something which will grow from here on as well, taking the mechanical harvesting into consideration.
Yes. I mean, mechanical harvesting is something they have to do. I think Maharashtra is now talking about it going in a big way. And possibly that has to be the solution going forward. And the technology is very well established. There's no problem about harvesting mechanically. In fact, the farmers get about 1 or 2 tons higher yield if they were to harvest by machines. And also they get a quicker resolution of the problem. So that is fairly good. I think that's going to be the future, looking at how the industry is going.
Right. So then for a Sakhti Sugar as well to get into the ethanol side of business, how long, what would that milestone look like?
I think if we are looking at South getting into surplus sugar situation, and we have a problem in marketing the sugar, then I think we might be looking at going into ethanol. Right now, we are not looking at ethanol at this point of time in Tamil Nadu.
Right. And overall, currently, if I'm not mistaken, ethanol blending is somewhere at around 9%. Right. The government has fast forwarded the target of 20% to 2025 from a 2030. Right. Do you think that's something which is going to be achievable as well?
It should be achievable. And also the government has said another thing. They're also looking at 100% ethanol vehicles. They want FF flexible fuel vehicles. So that is going to be, they can go up to 100% ethanol. So that also would probably, those vehicles will be coming out by 2025. Then you would find that, in fact, I think yesterday, Mr. Gadkari made a statement that he wants the sugar factories to put up petrol bunks and sell ethanol as a fuel. So if those kind of things come in, then we are looking at fairly a good consumption ratio should go up.
Right. And clearly, the sector itself, Mr. Manickam, has seen a lot of structural changes, especially when you talk about the rational alterations in the government's policies, the flexibility that has been provided with regards to diversion of surplus cane and B-heavy molasses, which is now allowed to produce ethanol that can be used for blending, and the differentiated pricing for ethanol based on the raw material. Apart from these structural changes, do you think anything else that the industry requires the government to do?
Yeah, I think they should allow us to market the fuel. Right now, we are dependent on the oil companies, and the oil companies buy from us and they blend and sell it. So they possibly would have to allow us to buy diesel or petrol and blend it with ethanol and sell it at the factory level. So that could be a situation where we can get higher blends and possibly get better realization immediately. So that could be a way that Brazil, that's what is happening. Brazil and other countries, the farmers are selling the fuel. And so that is a possibility that the government will have to look at, where, the people who are producing the alcohol will be allowed to sell the fuel.
Right. And anything else that needs to be highlighted for the sector as a whole from here on, Mr. Manickam?
Nothing particularly. I think they should be looking at long-term policies and not change the policies ever so often. And that is something which I think the government right now is talking about long-term policies. So we're quite happy with it. And the way it's going forward, I think the industry is looking good. I mean, right now we have not heard about any adverse possibility of policy changes and all that. So it's looking fairly good. And with ethanol, I think we are really in a good wicket.
Absolutely. And I think from here on, the road continues to look upwards and onwards. But thank you, Mr. Manickam, so much for joining us on the show. As always, it's a pleasure to speak to you and get insights from you. Looking forward to many such discussions from here on. Thank you so much and stay safe.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.